you get to interview me.
Yes. Today we are going to get into Abby's master's thesis. And this is a bit fresh, right? It came out this year?
Yeah, it did come out this year, as if it's like a movie or a show. You know?
It was released.
It was released. I think, when did I actually submit it? It must have been, I think it was the beginning of July in the end. Since then, I've just, honestly, it's weird. I feel like it's like you give birth to something and then you just never want to look at it again, which is not how you would, be if you had a child.
It's more like you bury it.
Yes.
It just goes onto the shelf. Yeah.
But it's fun to revisit. It was actually funny because I haven't told you this.
Okay. What?
And I have to make do on the thing that I'm going to say now.
Okay.
This is also for accountability reasons. But I am reworking this into a PhD.
Wow, that's so exciting.
I know,
Wait, that's so exciting.
So I'm working on the PhD proposal with my supervisor who supervised this thesis.
Okay.
I sent her like my first idea, which we won't get into because it's almost like
under wraps, top secret.
Yeah, and it needs to be really worked out. And it could be like, I could be watching this back one day or listening back and being like, girl, you did not even cover that topic. Because I know how these things go and they can just change so much. But yeah, I am like gonna do it, which is super cool.
Super
she wants
exciting.
to supervise me and I have to find a second supervisor. And I know who I want to ask. It's just I'm waiting on her to get back about my first like initial research question / proposal. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like I'm gonna be what they call in Dutch a buitenpromovendus, which is like an outside PhD student. So I won't be I'll be affiliated to the University of Amsterdam, but I won't be paid, nor will I be teaching.
It kind of sounds like a build your own PhD.
Build your own PhD. Yeah. Which is, I was thinking to myself, I can either wait until there's an art history position somewhere, but we're in a very sensitive climate right now. The humanities are not getting any money nor attention. And if I want to do this, I have to do it on my own terms and I have to make it happen for myself. I love that
for you though.
So I'm not going to let this whole anti-humanities climate stop me from doing this thing that I've always wanted to do.
No, and I think that actually your paper, what I got from it, in terms of importance and where it fits into what's happening in art and also kind of our culture right now is there's really this sort of like desperation for something spiritual culturally, and a void and an unknowing like how to fill that, because historically we filled it with religion or vice or capitalism, all of these things, and none of those are really working out for anybody so well.
And that's kind of like where I moved towards, I guess, towards the end of my thesis, but really maybe just for the listeners, what I wrote about is I looked at 3 examples of different chapels that artists have either designed themselves or have hung work in. I specifically chose 3 examples that were very much Gesamtkunstwerke, which are works of art where they are works of art in their totality. So it's not just a painting on a wall, it's also the architecture of the space, and they're integral to each other.
Yeah.
I was interested in this because I was wondering, why are there so many examples of these chapels? Like, why are artists drawn to creating these spaces? And then, I ended up pulling 3 examples. So Mark Rothko, the
Classic.
Rothko Chapel in Houston, which is probably the most famous example.
Yeah.
I then looked at James Turrell's chapel in Berlin,
which I'd never heard of until I read your paper. Yeah.
Also really cool. And then Ellsworth Kelly made a chapel in Austin, Texas,
which is the only one of these I've been to, and I love.
Have you been there?
I love Ellsworth Kelly. He's one of my favorite artists of the 20th century.
Oh my God. Yeah. How did I not know this? Okay, because I really like Ellsworth Kelly too. And I've learned to grow to like him even more because of my research.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And also what he's written on art and just, his approach. So it was super fun to kind of dive into these case studies with my main question being, like, what does that space do? Like, how does the object with a capital O which is in the artwork. How does it function? So that's something that we look at in like cultural analysis, which is like the discipline I work in. It's not like, it's different from art history, because an art historical piece would be very much like chronicling, like,
yes,
this is when Rothko made it, and these were his influences, and this is, I really wanted to look at like, okay, but what does the artwork do to people that engage with the artwork? How does it work?
Yes.
So like the very active kind of like the verb of it. What does it do?
And when you were thinking about that and writing about it in the paper, you, I assume, had to go to previous schools of thought, right? Other theorists on like how art has an impact on us and what's the relationship between viewer and artwork.
Exactly.
But also space, probably. Like, I know you love architecture, and that's evident in this paper as well.
Yeah. And I love, wow, you just know what to say. I'm like, that's exactly it.
I just know how to compliment.
So yeah, of course, then there you kind of go into almost the philosophy of art and like aesthetic theory, and like, what does an artwork do? What does it do to our perception? How does it make us feel? Why does it make us feel that? And I specifically, I guess my first inspiration was, the book that my thesis supervisor wrote, Hanneke Groteboer. She wrote a book called The Pensive Image.
Okay.
And she talks about like specific Dutch still life, and other like works from the 17th century that basically exist to facilitate thinking.
Which we've talked about on the podcast before. We'll go and check out the Vanitas episode.
Exactly. Yes. And I talk about Vanitas in this paper as well, and trompe l'oeil I talk about as well, like kind of tricking you into, like nudging you into a certain thinking process.
Yes. To investigate your own mind.
Exactly. Yes. So that was like the first kind of art theorist that I started drawing from, but there are so many other ones as well. I was very interested in this like connection between abstraction, so abstract art, so anything that doesn't have any figuration in it, so it's just swaths of color or nothing, or you have to really kind of interpret it. And some people really struggle with abstract art because they think, I don't get it. What's the point?
Look like something real. Yeah.
But it's very interesting, because if you look at the history of abstraction, you kind of can start with like Kandinsky and abstract expressionism, and their whole philosophy was about getting to the essential of what is true, and removing all of the figures and removing anything that might resemble anything to our like physical reality, and just conveying an emotion. Yeah. So then you can think about like, you know, the one way, which is very abstract expressionist, could be like a Jackson Pollock piece. And the other extreme could be like a Mondrian. Okay. But both are like trying to break you out of it. Universal, like being like, okay, whoa, what am I looking at? How does it make me feel? You know, I think a Pollock painting is very angry painting.
Visceral, yeah.
And for me, a Mondrian is very still, very orderly. It looks like, you know, maybe I should organize my closet. Like, that's the type of thing. I don't know. Yes. A very different feeling. Yes. So I've like, before this, I was not into abstract art either. Like, I've always been an old masters girl, but I like that abstract artists engage with philosophy, because they are very intrigued by like the thinking process, human consciousness, like universal feelings, the void.
Yes, the void in particular with Rothko, because it's darkness, and I think most people associate like black hole void kind of depth with that dark image. But I find it so interesting that this crops up not just with the three artists that you selected for this paper, but also artists exploring like the theme of a chapel, or and specifically contemporary artists in the 20th century, and reworking it into a modern context. I was thinking as well, Matisse one of his last works was he created a
Yeah.
chapel as well. But
That's
that
true.
actually doesn't fit into your paper because I went and had a look at it, and it functions completely as a real space of worship.
Yeah.
And so
And there's a lot of Christian iconography. And
yes,
Yeah.
it's more it's decorative.
Yeah.
Whereas this is an artwork as a building, as an installation.
Right. And then I even went further to argue that these specific places are immersive spaces. So it's not about just looking at an artwork from a distance. It's about being inside of the artwork. People think about immersive art and they tend to think of like a Yayoi Kusama, like Infinity Room.
Sure.
Or they think about even some of these new kind of museums that you have where the artwork is all around you and it's dancing. It's kind of video based and you're kind of inside the painting. But
very Instagram friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that those spaces, I really like Kusama. I like the Infinity Room, but those spaces for me are a bit, they don't do like the word immersion justice. Like to be fully immersed in something is to really get lost in it and to almost forget maybe how you got there, or to truly be invited into a new space that can be spiritual. And I think that's why all of these artists specifically chose, let's say, the skeleton of a chapel, because they really wanted to contemplate, you know, can art serve or can art generate a spiritual experience? Can I do that without having any specific reference to any religion? So just taking away all of the religious iconography and replacing it with, for example, in Rothko's case, just a black painting or a series of black paintings where you just sit on a stool and you look at a painting of nothing.
Yeah.
And what is that? What
Yeah.
does that do? Yeah.
And then the second artist that you investigated, Terrell. Yeah. Also, all of these artists are
They're
American.
all American. Yeah. All like,
Interesting.
yeah, like they were all starting to work. Well, Rothko's a bit older, but predominantly working in like the 50s and onwards.
Okay.
And Terrell's still working.
Okay.
He's the youngest. Kelly and Rothko have passed. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting that contrasting the Rothko chapel with Terrell's in Berlin, because Rothko's all darkness and Terrell is light.
Yeah.
Multicolored light that you know, fades in and out, just rainbow, fully immersive, and reminds me very much of the 17th century churches here in the Netherlands. Protestant churches removed artwork from their worship and just wanted the worship space to be filled with like the light of God.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the light of the artists.
Yeah. And Terrell is a Quaker. And
Interesting.
Yeah. And Quakers are, you know, their main motto, I think, is follow the light within, or something like that. I have it. It's all about the light. So he has been, I mean, intrigued by light since he was a little boy.
Okay.
And I write about how his grandmother would be like, okay, follow your true light, your inner light, God's light. And that kind of took him on this journey, and super interesting. He was working in LA.
I bet they love him in LA.
Kendall Jenner has his work in her living room.
Oh, cute.
Or like in the hallway or something. He's very loved. I think he's actually, he kind of straddles like artist / scientist.
Okay.
Because he was, I think, I'll have to look back, but he has a very technical background. And a lot of his artwork, it's not just interesting because it's like these different light colors, rainbows kind of coinciding. He basically plays with trompe-l'oeil, and he like creates spaces that look like they're 3D,
okay,
but they're 2D
and just made with light.
Just with light.
Oh wow.
So like you will look, I mean, there's an installation called, I have it here, I think it's called Sky Space.
Yes, where it's like a ceiling light that has a film over it of well, maybe it's not a film, I don't know, but it looks like the sky basically.
Yeah. So the weird thing about that place is that when you go into it, you look up And the sky, it is the real sky, but it looks 2D.
It's the real sky?
Yes.
So he cuts a hole in the ceiling so that you see the sky?
Yes, but he uses the light to manipulate the environment so it looks two-dimensional.
Okay.
And his whole shtick is that he wants you to become aware of the process of seeing.
Yes.
And understanding that light is going to have an impact in how you experience reality.
Interesting.
So make the viewer aware of what seeing actually is, because it's something that we never question. We just think, oh yeah, I look at that and oh that's 3D, that's 2D, that's flat, that's convex, that's concave. He plays with that to really make you realize like, oh, I've been tricked.
Yeah.
So there's this like element of surprise that of course we see also in You're Gonna Die, Honey. Listen back to that episode. We talk about vanitas and how they use trompe-l'oeil to like trick the viewer into thinking or kind of grappling with like a skull that's protruding from a painting.
Yeah.
So I loved that connection as well, like tying Turrell to that kind of tradition.
I'm curious, does the like religious background of any of the other Ellsworth Kelly or Rothko, did that have an impact on how you viewed these spaces?
So for Rothko, I mean, he grew up well, he's ethnically Jewish.
Okay.
But wasn't practicing, was a self-professed
Very
atheist.
American Jew.
Yeah. Typical American Jew. Was not, actually didn't believe in God and was very...
That's fine in
open.
Judaism as well.
Yeah, very open about his atheism. But he was very much like searching, like a lot of these abstract artists, for this like the kind of spiritual side. And this is actually the last artwork that he made before he died, and he died by his own will.
Okay.
Which is very interesting too. I think he was an artist who he produced so much, and he has made like some really brilliant work, but he was also very tormented, and he was, I think it's sad how his story ends, but this piece was his kind of like, he really considers this like his masterpiece, the chapel, and creating that kind of refuge for people where they can come and just be with their own thoughts. And I think for him it was all about pushing you to look inwards. So I talk about this word called interiority.
Tell me more.
And that's kind of the experience of essentially being pushed back into yourself, because there's nothing to get from the painting that you're looking at.
Oh, it's sort of like meditation, like how you're supposed to shut everything down, and that forces you to go in deeper. Yeah,
exactly. So creating space within yourself. And then we can contrast that with Turrell, which is all about exteriority and looking around you and your being in the space around you. But both experiences housed in a chapel, which I think is so interesting too. And I think also kind of gets to, some of the teachings of like major religions. It's about, it's the very kind of like personal connection that you can have with God that comes from within, but also seeing God in the world and evidence of God in holy spaces or in church or whatever. So I think it's so cool that artists are like coming into dialogue with these very universal and like very
the iconography,
right?
Yeah,
those
or
themes.
How does Carl Jung describe it? Like the collective subconscious.
Yeah.
And for Ellsworth Kelly's chapel, I feel like of the three, that's the one that is the most recognizable as a chapel, especially within Christianity.
Yeah.
Because in addition to the like stained glass geometric features that he has on the walls, light comes through and then it's a whole white space, so that light fills up the space. But he also has these black and white abstract marble just squares around the space that represent the stages of the cross, or at least are calling upon that. I don't think that they're directly referencing each individual story in that, but it's, when I was reading your article, I got the sense that he didn't want that necessarily, that he was more so there was something about all of these symbols are just sort of like artifacts rather than specifically Christianity.
Yeah, so Kelly was really interesting because he really wanted to create art that didn't feel like its sole function was decorative, but also didn't feel like it had to command interpretation to be validated or to have the right to exist. Like, he was really intrigued in art as an object. Like the same way that, you know, a cup is a cup and a table is a table.
Yeah.
For him, he's like, why can't this thing just exist on its own?
Yeah.
Which I love.
This
Some
gets,
good,
yes.
like, because this is all like so like, you know, we're getting really theory
up high,
but I like it because I mean that's I like thinking
that's
about,
what gets you excited as well.
I think that's also what I have realized. I love the intersection between like philosophy and art. I think that's like my little spot.
Yeah. But what you say about Kelly is actually what first drew me to him, because we have a piece by him at the Milwaukee Art Museum where I grew up. And as a very little kid, there was one painting by him. It's just 3 huge, like 3 meter tall by 2 meters wide. It's a triptych. So 3 paintings, and it's red, yellow, blue. Yeah. Just the solid colors. And it was so strange for me as a kid because you said earlier that people sometimes struggle with, you know, abstraction in general, but Ellsworth Kelly in particular has gotten a lot of frustration from people because it's so abstract and simplified as well. Yeah. And as a little kid, I also could identify like, oh, this painting is art because it shows you an image. It's a thing. And so being called to this Ellsworth Kelly painting was sort of weird for me. Like, confronting in that way.
People talk about his work as if it's like a being in a room. Yeah. Like it's almost a presence. And then I kind of draw from this theory about objecthood and like what it means to be an object. And I think, for me, Kelly's Chapel is drawing upon traditions of the past, especially with the mosaics, with the light entering into the space. The architecture is it draws on a Romanesque church. He has, you know, a typical kind of like nave and apse, and he kind of very much is nodding to the past, but it seems like the type of place that would survive all of us. Like it will have this kind of eternal presence. I think that's what he wanted for the space. It's just, I want it to be something that just stands there, and it doesn't even I don't even think if he necessarily needs people to visit it. Of course as an artist, there's probably
it's right in the middle of Austin.
It's like it's been commissioned by I think of course there's going to be visitors, but I think for him, if I also understood him properly from what I read and also his letters and his development as an artist, is that he didn't think that art was something that should just hang on a wall. It just deserves to exist for the sake of existing.
So how has writing this thesis affected not just like the way that you interact with and look at art itself, but specifically like curation? Because I know that that's part of your job, is that you place art in different locations. And this thesis feels like it could easily feed into that.
I think for me, it definitely aligns with my work because I work on a collection that's spread throughout the Netherlands that's not in museums. So it's art that lives with people in spaces. I think for me, when I have to decide, for example, or when as a team we look at artwork that might, you know, it might be time for the artwork to be deaccessioned, or this, you know, it's not really in a good state anymore, and we make something called waarderingskaart. So we look at like the value or the intrinsic value of the artwork to the space, the collection, to the people that work in that space. I think it's super interesting because I really get to look at how the artwork indeed is functioning in the specific space, its relevance to the space. Is it adding something to the space? And those are questions that in a museum you don't really have, because a museum is a museum. It's already this,
your mind's already prepared as the viewer.
It's already like, okay, if it's enter the museum, like you made it to that place.
Yeah.
That's, people call museums also like the place where art goes to die. It's the graveyard where you end up, and you kind of become venerated as an artist, or the artwork will, you know, be protected there forever in theory, but it's not, it's taken out of its original context.
Yeah.
It's no longer living with people. And that's also something that Martin Heidegger is a German philosopher, and he writes a lot about space.
Okay.
And how like a church or a small, there's this metaphor called the Heidegger's hut.
Okay.
And it's a real place where he would go and he would sit and he would think and kind of philosophize, and that's where he would do his work. But Heidegger's hut is also a bigger metaphor for spaces where you can contemplate and think.
Okay.
And so in many ways, like, yeah, a chapel like this could work in a similar way, where people can gather there and think and ponder. But also he talks about how like great art in his eyes is artwork that can lead to a certain like revelation. And he actually like his big hypothesis is that in the 20th century and onwards, that there will be no more great art because it will not inspire us in the same way that the Parthenon inspired the ancient Greeks. Like there's this, like, when we visit a museum,
yeah,
what you said, we already go into it expecting to look at art that's been quote unquote approved, selected, curated for us.
Yeah.
And the act of looking at an artwork just becomes, it's just about looking.
It's performative.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you encounter an artwork in a different context, a church, a street, it could be a mural, like a wall in a city.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, well, I think land art is so cool. Like land artists, or they work with nature and they just kind of start manipulating rocks and creating sculptures. And
yeah,
like that is so much more like, wait, what am I looking at? Because you haven't prepped your brain to encounter that thing.
Yeah.
Like you really can approach it and just be like, whoa, why is it there?
There's more
Who made this?
like an emotional willingness to be surprised.
It's like a deer in headlights. Like you're stunned almost. You're like, what is this? You know? And I think that's what he means by great art, and like what the great art of the past was for people.
Mm-hmm.
It lived with people. It would have been something, I mean, yeah, the whole concept of a museum is something that hasn't always existed. It's a relatively, especially
collection,
now,
yeah,
a collection, curating a collection. I mean, I'm all for museums. I love museums, but you go into the museum and you already know what you don't know what you're going to see.
To love something is also to be critical of it. Like,
yeah,
we can see with the shortcomings and hopefully imagine something beyond that, and that is a potential for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a different experience. And I think that's like the word that I kept coming back to as well, is the experience of being in an immersive space, the experience of going into this chapel versus going into a traditional museum. I mean, I'd love to hear, what was your experience of visiting the Austin Chapel? Like when you kind of entered it, was it different for you than being in a museum space, or did you feel like it still felt a bit like a museum in some ways?
Well, it still felt like a museum, because if I remember correctly, it's part of a museum.
Right. It's
so
like
it's in the courtyard basically, and you're in the galleries, and then you come out to like go see the chapel.
Yeah.
So your head already is in that space that you're talking about,
right,
of being prepared for art. But the size, the immersion, I think it's also context, because I was on a trip, like visiting my sister who goes to school there, and there's a time limit and how long you can be there. It's not like
Right.
you're walking past and you happen upon something and you just decide to pop your head in and then, wow, surprise. I actually remember that happening when I was at boarding school. I went to boarding school in this tiny little town in Connecticut, and I was just walking in town one day with a friend. We were literally just sticking around, like having fun, and there was a church, and I was like, let's go in.
Yeah.
And so we go in, and there's nobody in there, and I don't think that I'd really been in an empty church up until that point. So it did actually strike me as, wow, silence, contemplation, reverence. And I didn't get that from the Kelly Chapel. I don't know if I would be able to get there, even in something like the Rothko Chapel. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what felt similar, actually? It's not real. It's sort of a chapel, is Monet's Water Lilies, Lingerie.
I do love that.
Yeah, I did disconnect in there and like just take it in and turn off my analytical brain. Yeah. So I spoke too soon. It is possible. On that particular visit to the Ellsworth Kelly Chapel, didn't hit for me. No, but I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's really interesting. I think, yeah, there's so many layers to this. There's so many different ways that you can go into the space. People have like reported, there have been cases of people going to the Rothko Chapel and just like having this emotional experience and they're crying and they just happen upon something. But you know, that can also happen when you're on the street and you see like a dog that looks particularly cute and you're on your period, you know, like I also don't want to make this like I don't want to elevate these artworks to such a high degree where I give the artist so much credit, because while I really admire, you know, this kind of body of work that each of them, or I guess let's just say like these types of artworks, I don't think that it's exclusive, like these types of experiences are exclusive to chapel projects that artists have done.
What was like your big question that you left off this paper with in terms of what more you're interested in discovering?
Yeah, I think the relationship between art and space, like how we experience an artwork in a museum versus a church versus a government building. I think you can really, if you can demonstrate that art has added value to any space, you can make a really strong case for more investment in public art. You can really show the value of art and the right of art to exist. Art as something that we live with, not just something that we look at once a year when we go to an exhibition. I love your house because there's art everywhere. That's how it should be everywhere. And also, like, I guess, what are like contemporary artists, how are they engaging with the lack of third spaces, the lack or kind of the decline of community,
locations to present your art, honestly.
Right. Exactly.
It's
as well
a gallery and then a museum, like that, or private ownership.
Right. There has to be more than that. It's not only for a select number of eyes. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I think these places, because a lot of them are non-denominational and there is no religious like tie to these spaces. There could be like wonderful programming. The Rothko Chapel does amazing events.
Fantastic.
And it's for all religions, people from all backgrounds. There have been like, I think there was, you know, on one day it could be like a Christian ceremony, on the next Jewish, Sikh, Muslim, like it's been everything. So I don't know. I love that. I think there should be more places like that. And then maybe not so like museum-y, like just, oh yeah, that little, you know, that chapel down there, or like, oh, that building over there.
In
like,
the park, around the corner.
An artist designed it. Yeah, you could do yoga there. You can do meditations. You can throw your birthday party there. But you're surrounded by art and it's cool and it's immersive. And like, we don't have enough of these spaces.
No,
we don't.
We don't. And honestly, the main place that I think people find this in their ordinary lives is like on the internet, is by going online. Is that's where you see art.
Right.
Big air quotes around that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's kind of what I'm eager to discover also, like next, is kind of diving more into that relationship between art and space and what and that kind of theory of Heidegger on great art, and like, have we lost the essence of great art?
Is it possible
today?
to have more great art? Will we ever have it again?
Will we have it again? Yeah.
Something I'm really looking forward to talking about with you, and just
one day,
like, our personal lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know. I'm really curious.
I'm so excited for your journey to do a PhD.
I know.
So exciting.
I'm like, it's funny. One of my friends who's doing a PhD like through the UFAT, who's working for the UFAT.
Yeah.
He was like, well, I don't know. I haven't heard like the best, things about doing it by yourself. But honestly, I was like, my thesis supervisor told me, like, I feel like you can do it. My study coordinator had told me, like, don't do your master's thesis next to work. And I loved doing that.
Side by side. Yeah.
So you can do anything you put your mind to. Remember that. Just like,
go get it, girls.
Even if the topic seems super niche and pointless, it doesn't mean it's not worth examining, because you will just go down this rabbit hole and you will learn more about yourself. You will learn more about the world, how other people engage with the world, and like this type of academic inquiry is so important to our well-being as humans. Like, I will always stand by that.
Yeah,
that's also why I love the podcast, because
we can just
feeds me.
Yes, just go ahead, throw spaghetti at the wall, see whatever sticks. What do we keep talking about? We keep talking about Vanitas a lot. True. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense now that I've read your thesis and I understand that was like a big part of your thesis. I'm like, oh wait, I'm feeding off of her excitement for this topic.
But I love that. Like, I would love if we could ever curate an exhibition. Like, I would love doing that. Like, I would eat that. Like,
wait, I have to show you some Vanitas that I saw when I was in France.
Okay.
Actually, okay.
Sorry,
time for us to go.
Yeah, we got to go look at other shit, but bye.
See you next time.